All right, we are live. Welcome. This is Peter Voogd, founder of the prestigious Game Changers Academy. And thanks again, guys, for tuning into our monthly Millionaire video series where we interview the world's most elite and successful entrepreneurs, CEOs, entertainers, and game changers. And not just people that are changing the game and making millions, but people that I have massive respect for who are making a huge difference, not just in their industries, but in the world. So I have someone that I've been excited about connecting you guys with for the last 6 months, finally nailed him down with his crazy schedule. But Tom Bilyeu, who is the co-founder of the billion-dollar brand Quest Nutrition and co-founder and host of Impact Theory. And if you're not familiar, which most of you guys are, Quest did sell protein bars, powder, pasta, and more, but you probably know them from their protein bar, which you may have seen literally everywhere. And amongst the startup crowd, they were famous for being one of the fastest growing companies in the world, with like insane growth of 57,000% in 3 years. They were one of the top, I think they were #1 on Inc.'s fastest growing companies. And he's also the founder of one of the most inspiring and just thought-provoking shows online, Impact Theory, which all of you guys have seen. And he said it was designed to leverage the self-sustaining power of commerce to radically influence global culture. And through his content, through his public speaking, we've spoken on the same stage. He's a very powerful speaker. He's trying to pursue greatness and unlock potential in millions and millions, and I'm sure, knowing Tom, probably billions of people. Tom was named one of Success Magazine's top 25 most influential people in 2018 and Entrepreneur of the Year by Secret Entourage in 2016. I was at his place a couple weeks ago. Such a genuine guy, and he's excited to give you guys massive value today. So Tom, thanks again, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you back, and this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited, and you have a healthy obsession with what you do. And I think a lot of people see obsession as bad, but I think you have a healthy obsession for shifting this culture. That's why I have massive respect for you, because there's not enough people right now trying to change the game and really shift this culture. So mad respect, first off, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
So I want to talk about, I've watched a lot of your interviews, and there's some funny interviews, and some people don't know your full past. Some do. A lot of people see you now. They see the success, they see the lifestyle, they see the money, they see all the impact you're making, but they don't see the times where you struggled. So can you bring us back? You said when you were younger, you had 2 big goals growing up: get rich and get six-pack abs. And I want to take you back to that one day you said you were teaching after you left Berkeley, and 2 guys came in who were rich and who had abs. I kind of want you to start from there. I'm sure you remember that story, but do you remember your thought process and mindset back then and how that kind of shaped you to who you are today?
Yeah, very much so. So the important thing to understand about that period in my life was I had gone to USC Film School, and I had done very well until my final semester and was really crushing it and had sort of proven myself the person to watch, and thought, you know, I was going to do only 4 people out of your class get to do what's called a senior thesis film. I was one of the 4 selected. So I was like, this is it. I got this on lock. And excuse me. And I shoot my thesis film, and it is an absolute atrocity. And dude, it was so bad. I think people think I'm overstating it now for the sake of the story, but it was soul crushingly bad. People were making fun of me. They were cutting like spoof reels from my film to like make these comedy loops and stuff. It was pretty gnarly. And I realized in that moment a very, very hard truth. I did not have talent. And in realizing that you don't have talent in the thing that you want to do, and now you're graduating school, and that was like, I just always knew I was going to go to college. I was just an assumption. Like it didn't even occur to me that there were people in the world that didn't go to school. It's very different now, but back then it felt like you go to school, you get, you know, your degree, and then that more or less guarantees success. And so here I was with a senior thesis film that was supposed to guarantee me success, and it was so terrible that I stole the master so that I would never have to let anybody see it again. And so I was lost and hopeless and laying on the floor of an apartment I couldn't afford to furnish, and just thinking, you know, what am I going to do with my life? So my mindset was pretty dire. And I'll say that I flirted with depression. I don't know that I was ever truly depressed. But I flirted with depression. It was a way dark time in my life. And hopeless is the right word. That's exactly how I felt. I just didn't see any way to make my dreams come true. And so then, like you said, the sort of culmination of the next movement of my life, which was really finding what we now call the growth mindset, but it didn't have that name back then. That would have been a lot easier to have the words. But I started reading people like Tony Robbins, and I start reading about brain plasticity. And that was the one that really helped. And so I'm now primed with that, the notion of brain plasticity, that, you know, my brain can change with concentrated effort, that if you practice something, you'll get better at it. I think most people understand that, and people certainly understand if I go to the gym, I can change my physique. I will say that if you go to the mental gym, you can change your brain just as physically, by the way, as you're changing your body, and it has just as dramatic of an outcome. So that was, I begin to like get this sense of hope that maybe I don't have to be bad forever, that just because I don't have talent today doesn't mean that I couldn't get talent over time if I was willing to put in the work. And right then, those two guys walk into my class as I'm beginning to believe that maybe I can become something, even though I'm not something. And they basically, you know, began to put before me the entrepreneur's mindset. And they said, look, you're coming to the world with your hand out, and you want to make films, but you have to beg for the money. So you should come with us, get rich, and then you can make movies the way you want to make them. And I thought, wow, that actually sounds amazing. And had I known then what I know now, I had no idea how long and arduous and at times torturous that journey was going to be. But I took them on their word, and I left my job at the time I was teaching film. I left that, and they said, look, we're hiring you as a copywriter, but this is a startup. So you can have any job in the company you want. You just have to become the right person for the job, which means you're going to have to go get better skills. But if you get those skills and you can help us solve problems, you could actually become an owner in the company. Now, you'd have to put in an inhuman effort, but it is possible. So give it a shot. And I just went nuts. And for about 6.5 years, literally, all I did was work.
Hold on 1 second. You had that hunger because you felt like you failed. And I want to go back a second, Tom, because I think there might be some people who watch this that have the same feeling you had, as far as maybe not depressed, but like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I have the talent that I need to build the life I want. So was it that book? Was it a combination of breakthroughs in your head that made you, what went from like, I'm talentless, I don't know what I'm gonna do, to like, you know what, I can make something work with my life? What was that gap? Do you remember in between when you were reading the book and studying what it was?
It was self-loathing. And self-loathing will either break you and drive you into depression, or it's going to kick you in the ass and get you focused on where you need to go and to make the changes that you need to make. It just got to the point where it wasn't okay. I was not okay believing that I was talentless. I was not okay laying on the floor of my apartment. I was not okay not striving for something, reaching for something, trying to be big and learn and grow and, you know, become capable of the extraordinary. It wasn't okay anymore. But normally when people get to that point, there's a bitterness that washes into their life. They're angry at their station. They feel like a victim. And I just didn't play the victim. And I decided that, okay, if brain plasticity is real, and that was one key thing, reading about that really made a big difference, because it was just a biologist going, nah, this just is real. So, and there was a huge debate around brain plasticity at the time. This is the one thing that I'll give myself credit for making it just a smart choice. There was a debate. Some people were saying, this is just real. Like, this is how the brain works, and science is going to catch up and realize. Then there were other scientists that were like, no, that's not how it works. And we have this hyper learning phase when we're young, but it then pairs off and you can't keep learning as an adult. So can you teach an old dog new tricks? And since they were debating it, I said, all right, look, I'm just going to choose to believe that I can. And then until the world proves to me that I can't do it, I'm going to act as if I can get better at anything I set my mind to. And so I just poured myself into practice, practice, practice. And that's where I will say that being a teacher was insanely helpful, because so here I am, I have real self-loathing. I am really angry about where I am in life. And to get to that next level, I am teaching these students, and I realize to teach them, I have to practice at night. And as I'm practicing at night, I realize I'm actually able to learn enough to go in and teach them. As I'm teaching them, their films are getting better. And so I think, wait a second, if I can help them make their films better, why can't I help myself make my own films better? So that then began to reinforce this whole brain plasticity thing is real.
That's huge. So the growth mindset really was everything back then, even though you didn't know what it was called. And the second thing is, I want people to understand, Tom, because I get all my hunger. I've gotten a lot of my hunger and drive for a better life from my toughest times and from my failures. So I think I know the answer, but would you change anything about those situations when you felt talentless and when you grew and when you got yourself out of that rut? Would you change that for anything? Or do you feel like you developed the hunger that you have now from those tough times?
I'm not overly precious about like, oh, my life happened exactly the way that it needed to happen. The only thing I wish is that I could have had a growth mindset earlier. It really would have been a lot less painful. So just the way emotionally painful, the way that the human animal is, we are the ultimate adaptation machine. So whether I want to believe in that or not is sort of irrelevant, but you can't tap into that until you have a growth mindset, because to adapt, you have to intentionally put yourself in a structured amount of stress. So again, leveraging the gym, people just get it. People understand the gym. If you show up once in a while and sort of do something, nothing is going to happen. But if you show up every day, you eat right, and you bust your ass, we all know the physical transformation that comes with it. So that is, I wish I had known that sooner, because I had a fixed mindset. I thought when I realized I didn't have talent, that was a crushing blow, because it wasn't, I don't have talent yet. It was, I don't have talent. And filmmaking is something where like you either have talent or you don't. So like my entire life, dude, this is what it felt like. Over the span of probably 4 months, I went from thinking I was the next great film director to believing I do not have talent. I will never have talent. And now I have to go like live that life of quiet desperation, which was like my greatest fear growing up, right? Like I heard the quote probably when I was 14 or 15. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. And I was like, that will never happen to me, because I know what I want. I know what I love, and I'm going after it. And I'll pour myself into it. I'll give myself over to this thing. And I worked my ass off in film school, man. I really worked. And it was just going right until it wasn't. And for the punchline, and this is what I want people to understand, the punchline was not, I felt like I didn't have talent. The punchline was, I didn't have talent. And so if you realize, oh, I'm actually not good at this, and then don't believe you can get good through effort, it's really soul crushing, man. And it was blinding in its emotional devastation. And so climbing back out of that hole, like choosing to climb out of that hole, is the smartest thing that I ever did. But to really answer your question of would I change it, I really wish someone had been able to convince me that, look, you can change. So now just go do that hard work. Because that hard work I would never take back. The failures, learning, falling on my face. But like the 3 or 4 years where I chased dead-end jobs, I felt badly about myself, I'm laying on the floor of my apartment because I just don't feel like getting up, I have no idea where I'm going, that was a waste.
Huge, man. Because that's a drastic difference from thinking you're the best to be like, I don't have any talent. And hearing, there's a lot of 19, 20, 21-year-olds are going to hear this that are young. So the fact that you're saying you wish you would have learned that earlier is inspiring for people to hear that now. And I want you guys to really conceptualize that as well. So let's fast forward, okay? We don't, obviously your story is amazing and it's longer. Fast forward, you're crushing it in this company and you're literally crushing it. The company's worth 20+ million. So you're a millionaire on paper, you say, but then you had a realization and literally quit. Right? So what's the realization? How are you all of a sudden finally you're making millions on paper. You're young. You have everything you thought you wanted. Then you're like, you know what? I don't know if I want this. Can you talk us through that story? Because that's kind of the next chapter, it looks like.
For sure. So that was Awareness Technologies. So that was the company that I left. So when I was teaching, the 2 guys come in, they say, hey, we're doing the startup. The startup was Awareness Tech, a software company. And they hired me as a copywriter, started at the bottom, and I just worked my way up. And over 6.5 years, I went hard to a level that most people just aren't prepared to do ever in their lives. To give you an idea, I moved to an apartment that was 7 minutes or less from either of the 2 guys that hired me. So imagine, they're my bosses. I'm just a guy. I'm a copywriter, for God's sake. And I go in and I say, okay, if they ever call me at like 2 in the morning, because these guys worked just nonstop violence. So I was like, all right, if they ever call me at 2 in the morning on a Saturday, I want to be able to be to their house in less than 10 minutes. So my wife and I went and looked for apartments that were near enough to them. When she found one that she liked, then I would time it to make sure that I could get to either partner's house in less than 10 minutes, 7 technically. And so we found a place that I could get to in 7 minutes or less. Now, that was me when I was a copywriter. So you can imagine, like, as I'm growing and getting better, I'm trying to do more and more and be more important and learn. And so going like that hard, it was awesome. And that's one of those, I'm so proud of that. But then somewhere around, call it year 3 or 4, as much as I've been learning and becoming an entrepreneur and just nose to the grindstone and working every minute, not taking days off, 7 days a week, I mean, just grind, grind, grind. I really begin to go, I don't actually like what I'm doing. I don't care about the product. It was building me up for a while, but now it's tearing me down. I'm bad all the time, so I'm like developing anxiety as I go, because I'm putting myself in all these business situations where I'm just clearly the dumbest person in the room. And, you know, people always tell you, be the smartest person in the room. Don't be the smartest person in the room. That's bad advice if you really want to get somewhere. But being the smartest person in the room with a fixed mindset, that's actually money. You'll feel better about yourself. That's the trap, right? That's how you end up going nowhere. But when you're in the room, you're the dumbest person and you have a fixed mindset, that's a fucking nightmare. And so that's where I found myself. I was like, these guys are so much smarter than me. Now I'm beginning to develop a growth mindset, but Carol Dweck, who wrote the book Mindset, said everybody goes through a false growth mindset phase. And I will just be willing to bet 90% of the people listening to this, they're in a false growth mindset. They believe in it. They get the tenets of what a growth mindset is. They could repeat it back to you. But when they get punched in the fucking mouth, they're just upset about it. They're not thinking, oh my God, this is so rad. I'm going to learn something. I'm going to grow and I'm going to get better. When that's really, truly, and honestly your mindset, when it happens, then you actually have a growth mindset. So I didn't have that yet. So I could parrot it back. But man, the emotions of being the dumbest one in the room were hard. Constantly being wrong was hard. And it was really beginning to chip away at my self-esteem. So I'm like, man, I'm getting better at business by the day, but I'm still so far behind everybody. And I don't enjoy the product that we're building. I'm not having fun. Like, this is really beginning to take from me. And I stay at it for probably another, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years. And just finally I get to the point where I'm really breaking and I'm so unhappy. I'm now flirting with depression again. I don't feel alive. Nothing's giving me energy. And like you said, I was rich on paper, so I was worth about $2 million on paper. But like, let me tell you right now, the difference between paper money and cash in the bank is the same as no money, but your friends think you're cool, and actually having money. That's the only difference. People think you're cool when you have paper money, but you can't spend it. So there's virtually no difference between that and being broke. So that was the phase that I was in. And to get out of that, I ultimately went in and I had to quit. And I told my wife, I'd been telling her since I met her that I was going to make her a rich woman. And I said, look, I've got to go backwards for a minute because I'm so profoundly unhappy. I can't be effective anymore. You know, I'm earning more in salary than I've ever made in my life. At that point, probably 2 or almost 3 times as much. On paper, I'm certainly, you know, hey, we did it. We're multimillionaires. But like that, like, was totally meaningless. The only thing that I knew was I wasn't having fun. And so she was like, look, whatever you do, I bet on you. That became this big thing with us where it was like, all right, I knew that I had her no matter what. And so we were going to move to Greece, cut our expenses down to virtually nothing. And I was going to go back to writing film, and I was going to reconnect with what made me feel alive, to, you know, really tap into my passion. And so I go in and I tell my partners, look, thank you guys so much for this opportunity. Here's your equity back. I'm not going to cross the finish line, so I don't think I should get anything for this. I'm, you know, peace out. I'm gone. And they were completely stunned. And I'm driving home, pulling into my driveway. I'm on the phone with my wife. I'm like, I did it. The hard part is over. I quit. Like, it sucked because it was so close to them. But like, I just have to go do me. And they call and they're like, come out to dinner with us. So I go out to dinner and they say words that end up changing the course of my life. And what they said was, we could do this without you, but we don't want to. And that let me connect to something other than the money. And for anybody that's listening right now, I'm going to give you the punchline of life. The goal of the game that you're playing is not money and it's not success. It's fulfillment. It's how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. That is the only thing that matters. And I know that you're hearing that coming from somebody who's generated wealth in his life. So you think, oh, it's easy for you to say, but really put yourself in the shoes of where I'm at in my story now, because that was when I learned it. When I learned it was when I didn't have money and I hadn't succeeded yet. And I just knew how profoundly unhappy I was, and realized that I was living the cliche of money can't buy me happiness. So when you're in that situation and you realize, wow, this really is the joke that everybody warns you about. And I went in and I quit. Like, I had that, I don't know, like that moment where you're tested to the extreme. Like, I went in, I actually quit, I left, I thought that was it. We were ready to move to Greece. And if it hadn't been for my partner saying, you know, we don't want to do this without you, I never would have gone back. So I know how I react. Like, I've lived it. I know how I react when the only thing I have to show for my efforts is money. And the answer is, I didn't feel good about myself. The money wasn't sustaining me. And so I left. So now, having done something based on passion and value creation and feeling alive and following the energy of things that make me just really amped up, I can tell you that sense of like knowing who I am, being proud of who I am, busting my ass. I still work harder than anybody I know. That doing the hard things, being willing to suffer for something that you want and believe in, that is how you really win at life. But when my partner said that, I said, well, if we're going to keep working together, I'm never going back to doing it the way that we were doing it before. I'm never just going to chase money. This has got to be something that's predicated around value creation. I need to be authentic. I want to be myself. And so for 3 very different reasons, because we all agreed, they had felt burnt out as well, we decided to sell the technology company and start a crazy protein bar company. But it was all going to be based not around chasing money. It was going to be based around value creation. And that just changed everything.
Huge, man. So we're going to dive into Quest, because I still can't get over the growth. And I'm excited to talk about the growth of 57,000%. You were #1 fastest growing company on Inc. I think #2 an entrepreneur and one of the top in the world. So do you remember, and by the way, I want to give you props too for your hustle and grind. It's not just you that hustles. When I was at your place, your team is grinding. Your team is focused. So it's a reflection of you. I see a lot of leaders, Tom, this is a side note, that they're taking vacations, they're relaxing, they're traveling all the time, but they're telling their team to hustle hard, which is great in one sense. But I think the reason your team respects you so much and why they're grinding every single day, like intensely focused, at least this is what I saw, is because you're leading by example, and that's who you truly are. So I saw that firsthand, how you were not just telling people to work hard, but you were working hard, and then they obviously follow. So that's a huge, I think, part of success as well, with leadership, with entrepreneurship, being a CEO. So much respect to building that team. They seem like a bunch of hustlers and entrepreneurs. So let's go to the company growth. 6 to 7 figures, I think, happened probably extremely fast for you in Quest. Am I right? From 6 to 7 was pretty fast. But there's a lot of entrepreneurs right now stuck at 6, and they can't get to 7. They're getting in their own way. Maybe they don't have the systems. Maybe they want to do everything themselves. 2 questions. 1, what do you feel like, with your experience talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of younger entrepreneurs too, that you impact, what is the reason most people just cannot get the 7 figures and they don't rise above the noise with their company?
Their product isn't good enough. So people don't want your shit. That's the truth. And, you know, facing that can often be hard, but the reality is, get better. Like, that's the answer to every business problem you're ever going to face. The answer is get better, be a better leader, make a better product, market better. You just have to understand the value that you're creating for people. If you add enough value in something that people are willing to pay for, like, you will grow. That's just the truth. And every time in my career where we struggled to make revenue, that was just a fact. We had something that people didn't want badly enough.
Interesting. Do you remember the tipping point in that company where you did experience that growth, or was it just ongoing, stacking the value, having the right people, consistently working? You just had that tipping point? Or do you remember what it was that changed the game for your growth in Quest Nutrition? Was it like hiring the right person? Was it the systems? Was it changing the product? Was it a new, obviously, type of bar? Do you remember what the tipping point was? Maybe there was a couple.
There was a lot, but I'll give you one thing, because this is what I want everybody listening to focus on. The tipping point was joy. The tipping point was, I had been at a technology company, grinding it out, slogging. I felt like a warrior covered in blood, and it was such a strong image, and I loved it. I loved thinking of myself as a fucking axe-wielding barbarian who was willing to do anything that it took to grow this company. And then that is such an exhausting metaphor. That is such a tiring way to think of yourself and to show up every day fucking fighting and fighting. It just, you create something that looks like that. It's battle scarred and hardened. There's just no joy in it. So when we went to Quest, I said, forget all of that, man. I'm focusing on my mom and my sister. My mom and my sister are morbidly obese. And I want to make something with love, as dumb as that is. I want to make something with love that they can use in their life, eat because they want to eat it, and it's going to help make their health better. That was it. And so the mission became, let's end metabolic disease. The mission wasn't, let's get, let's make $1 billion. The mission was, let's end metabolic disease. And it came from such a beautiful place and really wanting to help people and connect with them and actually know and understand, like, what's going on in your life? How can I serve you? And once we switched our mentality to that and we were really focused on the customer, we were really thinking about them, we would do stuff that was so counterintuitive to business, like just straight profitability logic. People are like, what are you guys doing? But it ended up making us so much more money in the long run because people could trust us. They felt connected to us. They believed in us. And so that, like, coming from a place for real, like, how do you connect to your product, to your customer? Like, why do you give a shit? Because if you really care, that's going to be infectious. And so, first of all, thank you for the kind things you were saying about being here. But anybody that comes here, what you're going to see is we're fighting for something we believe in. Like, we really want to do this. So my wife and I, look, we could have bought an island and retired, right? We were in a very fortunate position. We fucking crushed it at Quest. We never, ever, still to this day, we could just shut it all down and never work again. So why? If Monday through Friday, if I'm awake, I'm either working or working out. I was working, not getting up. I was working at 4 a.m. this morning. Okay, so, and I will do that all the way until I go to bed tonight. And I'll repeat tomorrow and the day after and the day after. There are many weekends where I just end up working most of the weekend. The only way that that's sustainable and not just like the worst prescription ever in life is if you are so on fire for what you're doing that you can't stop but work on it. I was up at 4 a.m. working because I was so excited about the project because I know the knock-on effect that I wanted to have. I know the lives that I wanted to touch. I know what I'm trying to do. So if you start from a place of joy of what you're really trying to create, that it's actually meaningful, that the world actually values it, then you can crush it.
It makes sense why you're crushing it, first of all, if you watch this. So I hope people realize why, and it makes sense how you've not just accumulated your fortune, but you're doing it in a way that is based on your values and keeps you fulfilled based on your principles. I love that. Is there any questions that, because I'm thinking about the entrepreneurs that are right now inspired and they're like, wow, maybe I'm not doing the right thing. Maybe I am, but I need to get deeper into my passion and enjoy what I do. Is there any self-reflecting or deep, powerful questions that we could challenge entrepreneurs with right now, Tom, to make them understand if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing or what they're passionate about, or if they're on the right path?
Yeah, definitely. So if you want to know if you're on the right path, you need only look at how you feel. So the word energy has weird connotations, but that I'm always looking for things that excite me. I'm looking for things that, regardless of what it might lead to or become, just like in and of itself, it's going to be exciting. And the reason I think people should focus on that to know if they're on the right path is the struggle is guaranteed. The success is not. So once you embrace that, you may never be successful. You may never make the financial goals that you want come true. You may never even make the impact goals that you want come true. But if you believe in and love what you're doing every day, you quite literally cannot lose. Because remember, the only thing in life that matters, is what you think about yourself when you are by yourself. That's it. It's not going to be the money. I'll just tell you from firsthand experience, being rich is awesome. You're going to love it even more than you think, but it isn't what you've been told. It isn't going to change how you feel about yourself, which is why rich people commit suicide at the same rate as everybody else. You've got to feel a certain way about yourself, and that comes from doing the hard things, being disciplined, chasing something you believe in, and following the things that make you energized. But I think there's a huge gap there. People don't put their energy into that. They have some vision of how they're supposed to be or what they're supposed to build, or I'm supposed to be in software, I'm supposed to be an entrepreneur. What if those things don't fill you up? What if they don't fill you with energy? Then you really have to think about what does. So building a life where Monday is just as fun as Saturday, then you're winning.
Love it, man. That's huge. Appreciate you for sharing that. And you're coming from firsthand experience as well. So I want to do some game changer questions, Tom. We'll kind of do rapid fire. And we'll go from there because a lot of people have questions. Nate Coe says, I'm creating a new business in the charity space that leverages technology to help raise money for those in need. I already have a working prototype and proof of data that shows it will work since I've used this same technology to generate $5+ million in its first year with a similar business model. Unfortunately, that business failed hard and fast, and the money is nearly all gone. I'm ready to start over with a new perspective and the mission to serve others less fortunate. How do I begin to position myself as a philanthropist entrepreneur, and what steps should I take in order to get noticed by the CEOs of these charities that I admire so I can share my idea, vision, prototype with them to help obviously make the dreams come true?
So my advice is very aggressively to actually go serve the people that you're trying to serve. So if you have a technology that actually makes their lives better, getting it out there and getting it used is going to be the first thing that's going to get anybody's attention. Adoption, even in that kind of space, adoption is always the #1 thing that gets the attention of investors. Now, I have an allergic reaction to people who think of themselves as being in the charity space, because just follow the logic of how a charity works. A charity in its truest form is you build something where people aren't willing to buy this thing from you, or they can't buy the thing from you. And you have to go beg money from people that have figured out a way to generate income. So you're still going to somebody who's figured out how to make commerce work. So my thing is, you are far better off building a company that is self-sustaining. Tom's Shoes is just a super easy example. It started, his entire reason for existing was he wanted to give shoes to these poor kids in South America. And so we thought, well, what if for everyone that I sold, I gave one away? And that ended up obviously building a massive company in the meantime as well. But if you're not building something that is self-sustaining, you're really in trouble. So you tried it as a pure economic vehicle and it collapsed. Now you're trying it as a charity. I'm going to guess that unless you are just ridiculously good at raising funds, there's some inefficiency in the project or your misread of the market's desire for it or something, which is why the first business failed. And so my advice isn't to try to go attract the attention of other people that are going to give you money. My advice is to find out a way to monetize something that is philanthropic in nature, but that does not mean that it can't be profitable. So now that's one man's opinion. This is something that's very hotly debated, but I feel way strongly about this.
Thank you for that. Love it. Kind of already answered this, but I want to ask the question. Teresa says, what was your intent when deciding to build the Quest brand, Quest Nutrition, and what strategy did you use to go from your home to $1 billion company? I think you already hit on that, but anything else you want to add?
Yeah, no, I'd go more specific. So we were trying to end metabolic disease. So that was the jump. And I was thinking about my mom and my sister every day. But what we did to really go fast was 2 things. One, social media. So it wasn't even called social media when we started Quest, just to give you an idea of when this was and how rapidly the world evolves. So when we started, it was I wanted to get 1,000 true fans, and I wanted to add a ton of value to them. And if you guys know Kevin Kelly, who's actually been on Impact Theory, if you want to watch that episode, he talks about how anybody can make a living these days if you can get 1,000 true fans that would buy anything that you would put out. And I thought that that was really an exceptional idea. And so that was my goal. I'm going to get 1,000 true fans. I'm going to build community. I'm going to support them. I'm going to evangelize them at every turn. It's not enough to take good care of them. It's really just got to be over the top. And so that was the plan from the beginning. So we were all about building community. In all of our marketing messages, we tried to, we're doing the things that people, call, oh, we're content creators. Didn't have a name back then. But we were doing all of our own filming and making like recipe videos and cookbooks and stuff like that for people, which didn't directly sell our product. And if you were to call in our customer support line and say, hey, I want to get in shape, what should I eat? Our customer support team was instructed to tell you chicken breast and broccoli. And the reason that they were told to say that wasn't because we sell chicken breast and broccoli. We didn't. It was because it's the true answer. And so if you want to build community, then you need to deliver value for the long term. Never go for the short-term buck. And what I used to tell my team was never go for the sale, always go for the referral. So you want to treat people so well that they just can't help but tell other people about you. And that was a huge winning formula. And then the second thing for us was we became our own manufacturer. So we could control the quality of the product. We could make a bar that nobody else could make. So we had a massive competitive advantage because to make a product using our ingredients to get the macronutrient profile that we wanted, you needed our equipment, but we had to build our own equipment. So we knew that we'd have, you know, roughly a 2-year head start on anybody that was going to try that. So those two things put together and just an obsessive focus on value creation is how we blew up so fast.
Don't go for the sale, go for the referral. That's a game changer right there. I love that. Yeah. And I see it too, Tom, with a lot of millennials. They're literally getting into business. Yes, they want to impact, but they're trying to make money too quick. I see this every single day. I want to be a coach. I want to sell this. You haven't added any value. No one knows who you are yet. Why are you asking for money so fast? Have you seen that kind of the trends that in entrepreneurs that you're working with, not working with, but that you've impacted where they want the money too quick or they're trying to become successful too fast without patience? Have you seen that? Is that a common thing?
Yeah, I mean, look, my motto is fuck patience. So I'm not worried about whether people have patience. I think patience really, really will hold people back. You have to play the long game. There's no question about that. But to your point, and I really want to make it even more aggressively, social media is so powerful, and it's changed the world in ways that people don't even understand. But unfortunately, it gives a voice to people who want to get out there and start talking before they've really got anything to talk about. And so what I tell people is, if you want to have an echo in your life, you first have to learn to shout. And the shout is your skill set. The shout is the thing that you're great at. So I'll use myself as an example. I spent a little over 15 years as a dyed-in-the-wool entrepreneur building businesses before a camera was ever put in my face, before I ever wrote my first blog article. You know, I'd started, I don't know, 6 or 7 companies, maybe more, before I started talking about being an entrepreneur. So it's like, in fact, God, I was probably worth over $100 million before I started even talking out loud. So it's like getting to the point where you're capable of doing something like that, then go talk about it. But like what's going to make you feel good about yourself is becoming capable of something like that. It isn't like you're always going to feel a little uneasy if all you did was get rich, teaching people how to get rich. Like there's such this weirdness in those early days. And it's not that people won't do it. It's just that, man, like as a life path, you should be focused on skill acquisition. So if you know everything about being a coach, I love. Okay, cool. So now you've identified what gives you energy. That's awesome. So we know that where we want to be, we want to end up being a coach. If you want to be the greatest coach of all time, go play the game. Go play the game. Even if you know I'm never going to be like the #1, I'm not trying to be LeBron, but you're going to go play the game. You're going to get out on the court. You're going to learn. You're going to lose some games. You're going to win some games. You're going to learn teamwork. All of that stuff, and then you can go be a coach. But if you've never played, your players are going to have a really hard time taking you seriously. So the thing that I want to see people do is focus on becoming capable of the extraordinary, okay? Notice I didn't say focus on becoming extraordinary or focus on winning a championship. I just want people to focus on becoming capable of playing at a championship level performance, because I'm not worried about the accolades. I'm not worried about the finish line. I want people to get obsessed with becoming extraordinary, like really putting in the work to gain skills that have utility and then put that utility to the test in service of something bigger than yourself. That's the recipe for fulfillment right there.
Love it, man. That's huge. Thank you for sharing that as well. I'm curious and excited to hear your answer about this question. Trevor asks, how do you manage or motivate teammates who just go through the motions for a paycheck and don't ever think or consider about achieving more than just another paycheck? How do you inspire and raise the frequency of your team?
So your team is going to, as you scale, when you're small, you can just hold everybody to that standard. And when I'm small, then I would say I would just get rid of those people. Because spending a lot of time and energy trying to make somebody thirsty, that gets really exhausting. So I want people that are already thirsty. That way, when I show them where the water is, I know they'll know exactly what to do. So that isn't a big concern until you get big. Now, as you start getting big, you're going to break the world up into people that have linchpin tendencies. So they're just die hard. They want to get great for their own sake. They're not worried about you. They're not trying to please you. They want to be great. So read Seth Godin's book, Linchpin. So you're going to have those. Then you're going to have people that are continuity players. And there's just a reality that some people are not in an up or out mentality. They just want to do their job. They want to be the #3 in accounting, and that's where they want to be. And you need continuity players to keep your business going. So if you think if everyone in your organization is trying to move up in the, a hierarchy, you're going to hemorrhage a lot of really great people just because as you move up, there are less and less opportunities. So this is like advanced class shit. So it's probably not too useful for anybody right now, but just know that the world does ultimately bifurcate into those two things. And so I really just try to read people on the way in and figure out if they're a continuity player or if they're going to be a linchpin.
So this is for me, and I think other people need this hiring process. When you say you try to figure it out and you're finding the players that are thirsty, hiring process, any hacks or anything you've done that maybe could give some value about hiring and how many loops you make them jump through before you actually hire them on your team, or do you make them prove themselves in certain ways? I'm guessing you definitely never hire based off just one thing or just education. I can get
yeah, I almost don't look at resumes. I used to take a philosophical stance that I didn't, but resumes are helpful. You can see how that person perceives themselves. You can see, where they want you to believe their skill set is. All of that stuff is very relevant. The big thing in interviewing is to understand that the interview is such a horrifically flawed process that the only way to really understand somebody, one, do everything in the interview you can to lower their anxiety levels. Try to really get them relaxed, open yourself up, be warm, be easy to talk to. Remember that you're both trying to figure out if this is a good fit on both sides, right? So have as much compassion for them as you have like diligence in yourself to try to find the right person. Make sure this is a good fit for them. So I try to make the process not painful, which is a total 180. I used to make it like a total torture chamber to see what people were like under pressure. Just a bad strategy that I learned my lesson. And then the real win is anytime that you can do a project with somebody before you hire them. So before they quit their job and take a big stressful move on their part, work with them for a week, 2 weeks. So there are three things that I look for in anybody. Grand ambitions, you got to have huge dreams. Drive, because you've got to have the willingness to actually gain the skills to see those dreams to fruition. And then compassion. I want people that care for their teammates, that support their teammates, that celebrate their teammates, that hold their teammates to a standard, all of that. So I want really team-oriented people. So those are the three things I look for. You'll tell me that you've got grand ambition, and cool, I'll just take your word for it. You're definitely going to tell me that you have drive, but I'll be completely blind in an interview. Don't ever think you can see drive. It's the one thing you can look at a resume and get a sense that they've done some really extraordinary things. However, a lot of times people were part of a team and they've been carried. So it can be really, really difficult. Compassion, you'll get a vibe from the person. If you get a good vibe, that's a good sign. But even if you interview somebody 8 times, you're not really going to know. Work with them for 4 days, you'll know a lot more about who they are. So that really is, I'm always trying to get people to do that. So we have a massive internship program here at Impact Theory that's been a huge feeder into our hired ranks.
And I think becoming someone that can attract those A players like yourself is easier. So a lot of people maybe haven't developed themselves. They haven't really mastered their craft and they're trying to hire A+ players, which you can do, but I think it does help when you've obviously done things and you've mastered yourself as well first, because it's attractive when people want to work with an A player. Interesting question. Caroline says, I love that this is a totally different perspective than Grant Cardone, who says passion projects never work and just focus on market opportunities to win. But here's a question. Can you reach fulfillment by going after something smart that's not necessarily your passion?
No. Whatever you're going to do, I'll tell you right now, is hard as hell. So I don't know Grant well enough, so I will reach into his soul a bit here, knowing that this is always a risky endeavor. But if I had to guess, the thing that really is really his passion is the art of the sale. So it's easy for him to say, oh, just find the market opportunity, because he's going to be lit on passion with the art of the sale, sort of regardless of what industry he's pointed at, which is great. And for people that have that just love sales, man, it's going to be really easy for you to find that fulfillment, and that's wonderful. But if you don't have that, which I do not, so for me it matters very much what the end goal is of what I'm selling. And it matters very much to me that people are touched by the projects or the products that I put out into the world. So that's super important to me, that people's lives are made better by the things that I sell to them. So if I were a really artful salesperson, but I was selling something I didn't care about, which is exactly what I was doing at Awareness Technologies, I just didn't care. It's not like the software was bad. I just didn't care about it. There was nothing about it that I found interesting. I didn't use it in my own life. It wasn't impacting people's lives in a way that got me excited, or quite frankly, even got them excited. So that just wasn't fun. And so building the company was hard as hell. Working 7 days a week on something that drains your energy is brutally difficult. So going to battle for something that feeds you energy, that makes you feel good about yourself, you look around at the people whose lives you're touching like, damn, this is amazing. Because look, if I help 1 billion people or I help 100 million people, I'm still gonna feel pretty good about myself. So because that's what I love, that's what feeds me, that's what gives me the energy, that's what gives me that sense of fulfillment. There is no plainer way to say it than this. Anything that gives you a deep and lasting sense of personal well-being, which I will call fulfillment, where you feel like I'm a good person, I'm making the most of my opportunity on this planet, I'm working hard to better myself, I'm using the skills that I've gained to help me, to enrich my life, to enrich my family's life, and to enrich the lives of other people. If you do that, you will feel fucking awesome. And it won't matter how much money you have. Now, the awesome news is, in today's age with social media, where the single best marketing message you could ever possibly hope to have is doing rad shit for people, you can build an impossibly large business by doing what I just said. But I'm telling you, since enjoying your life is the only thing that matters, truly the only thing that matters, follow your passion. Now, you have to have a passion first, but that's a whole nother question.
So as far as investment goes, we have a lot of people, Tom, that are making money, not huge money, 6 figures, but they want to really figure out how to invest that to protect it. What's your philosophy? So Eric asked, what's your advice for someone hitting the 6-figure mark and how to set the money up for gains by itself, and obviously making money while you sleep? What's your philosophy early on when people start making money as a young entrepreneur? Is it investing it back in the business? Is it protecting it? Is it getting real estate, buying rentals? Is it angel investing? Like, what's your take on someone, if you were mentoring a young entrepreneur and they finally made their first 6 figures or maybe $500,000, what's your mindset on investing and making sure the money grows so they don't become the athlete that makes 100 million and then's dead broke 2 years after they retire?
Yeah, so this really comes down to the person. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. I will tell you that as I made money, I was pumping it all back into the business. And my goal was to get market dominance, to grow the company as fast as we could. I mean, I was worth hundreds of millions of dollars on paper, and living the same as I had been, when I was making like 150K. So it just pumping it back in. And I just have an extreme tolerance for that kind of risk when I'm in control. And so the way that I see it is like my wife said, she bets on me. I'm the same. I bet on myself. So there are things that I want to make come true in this world. I believe I'm the right person to lead those enterprises. And so I want to make sure that I have that money at my disposal in the enterprise to build it. That's the exhilaration for me. Now, when we got to a certain point, it was like, okay, well, it's time to take some money off the table to diversify. And then the money that I took off the table to diversify, I took a small piece and bet on myself again on the new company, Impact Theory. And then I took the vast majority of my nest egg and put it into very secure, low yielding, low risk investment opportunities to make sure that I would never have to work again. So I could, quit right now and just live off that low yield, low interest for the rest of my life and live better than I've lived for 95% of my life. So I'll never be out of that position again. I just won't put enough of my fortune back at risk. Yeah, so I think that you need to have a strong offense. You need to have a strong defense. It's going to change based on where you are in your life. But if your business is thriving and you can take some money out, don't take that money out and just re-gamble it. Take that money, be ultra protective.
Love it. So really early stages, invest it back in the business. And then eventually when you grow bigger, because I see that in a lot of entrepreneurs, they're investing a lot of their money back in their company to grow it, whether it's in personnel, whether it's in branding, marketing, advertising, things like that. So I love that answer. Yeah. So once they reach a certain level, then take the money, protect it, whether it's like low risk, real estate or whatever it is. So at the beginning, I'm trying to figure out like a happy medium for them to figure out like 6 figures. They should be investing a lot of that back in the business to get to 7. A lot of our entrepreneurs and our game changers, Tom, want to get to 7 figures. And a lot of their questions are 6 to 7, 6 to 7, 6 to 7. We talked at your place too about that.
Yeah.
Money-wise, team-wise, any other maybe tactics or breakthroughs for them to think about if they're not getting the 7 figures and they've been making 6 figures 5 years, 10 years, and they're just not making the leap? Can you kind of call maybe what that could be?
Yeah. So at that point, if you're really blind to it, you need to get outside eyes. So step 1 is always meditate. Like, you'll be shocked if you learn to clear your mind, how some truths that you may be hiding from will present themselves. And then the other thing is to get a mentor, somebody on the outside that can just look so dispassionately at your business and say, well, this is your problem. Like, every time I have a problem in my business, there's someone outside that sees it. It's just super obvious to them because they have no emotion in it, right? A big thing that entrepreneurs get stuck with, you want your 6-figure business to be bigger than it is. Like, I'll give you an example in my own business. So I love comic books. Comic books are a traditional feeder into film and television. But the reality is comic books just a bad business. So it is a bad business, always going to be a bad business. So I can like bang my head against the wall and like really try to make that work, or I can accept that it's just bad business. And so once I had somebody who was dispassionate about it look at it, they were like, yeah, that's a bad business. It's like, yeah, fuck, you're right. That really is a bad business. Like, it's an important step. It's something that I have to do, but it's never going to be a big business. So now that shifts my thinking from how do I leverage it? Because, okay, it's a inexpensive way to create a world, to tell a story, to build a community, but I know that it's never going to monetize very well. But if I start thinking about its ability to turn into film and TV, which monetizes very well, then it's like, okay, well, I know that this is part of a path. So I'm not going there to stop. I'm going there to go over here. But it may take the, because that, like, if I were in the comic world and hadn't had this realization, I'd be the guy going, okay, I'm 6 figures. How do I get to 7? And the 7 is to understand this is never going to be a 7. So you've got to like use it, whatever that thing is that you love about it, you leverage it to go where that thing leads, where it has a bigger field to grow into.
Huge, man. I love that. A couple people are asking about how do you find your guests? Like with Impact Theory, you've had some like legendary guests, and I'm guessing at this point you can probably get whoever you want with enough persistence, obviously, and strategy, because your show is so well known and it has the impact, and obviously you're an amazing interviewer. What's your qualification for a guest, and then how do you book them and find them? And I know the answer because I met one of the guys that is an absolute savage when it comes to booking. But yes. So can you kind of share your perspective on who you go after, then what's the process? Because a lot of people in here want to interview people, but they don't know how to get a hold of them.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm looking for people that have inspired me in some way. I decided from the jump that what I was going to bring to the world, because it suits my personality, it's exactly the kind of thing I like being involved in, is it was only going to be positivity. So I'm not bringing people on like a journalist to try to figure out if they did drugs when they were a kid. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, you've done something that's inspiring. You've touched me. You've given me a piece of knowledge that I've now put to use in my life that's made my life better. And I want to bring you on and give you a chance to share what you've learned with my audience. So I'm setting them up to shine. So first of all, people know that. So that's number one. They have to have touched me in some way. Number two is they've got to have accomplished something extraordinary. So it's what I call being worth the intro. So I write these crazy intros, which hopefully set that guest up in a way that people know what it is they've done. So if they've never heard of them, just hearing the intro, they'll be like primed to really get that message. And then the third thing is they've got to be able to articulate their mindset. So there are a lot of people out there that have done amazing things, but they just don't know how to talk about it. So that's not a good combination. So those 3 things, that's really what we look for. How we get the guests is, as you said, we have a savage who does our booking. And I want people to know, man, this show is not like me in a chair with somebody. This show is a big fucking team making magic happen. We've got a showrunner that used to work for Oprah. The guy that books our show used to book for Tavis Smiley and Arsenio Hall. It's like we've got killers on this team, man. If you want to do something extraordinary, you've got to learn, or you've got to become capable enough that you can attract the best of the best, because that's how you crush it.
Love it, man. Huge. So as far as the guests you've had on your show, like from a Tim Fair, I mean, I don't want to name, there's a ton of them, and I want you guys to check them out on YouTube, because a lot of people are studying personal growth and there's so much BS out there. I would just literally, if you just watch the interviews from Impact Theory, that'd be an amazing personal growth mindset book or a strategy to use. So let me ask you this, Tom. You're already successful, but obviously you have a growth mindset. Is there any, in all the guests you've had some legendary entrepreneurs and game changers. Is there any breakthroughs you've experienced from the guests that you'll never forget? Like, wow, I needed that. Or is there any common themes that you've seen in every single guest you've had that maybe have not just got to the 50, 100 million mark, but that are the most fulfilled? Is there any commonalities you can share based on all your experience interviewing people? And is there any one that stands out to you the most that you maybe needed in the moment when you were interviewing?
Yeah, so David Goggins, if you haven't already seen that episode, oh my God, that episode is so good. And that changed me when I'm normally changed in the research process, if I'm honest. So, because by the time I get on set with them, I already know how they're going to answer every question and all that. But when I was researching him, he really, really changed me. And the simple punchline, and it's worth watching the whole episode because he has so many great points. But the one that when you're just broken, you can't possibly do anymore. You're only 40% of the way to your real potential. And I just thought, whoa. And he's got this incredible story where he had come back from Iraq and he was powerlifting. So he was just massive. And a bunch of the people who died it ends up becoming a movie called Lone Wolf, or Lone Survivor. And he wanted to do something to honor them, and he wanted to do something really hard. So he decided he was going to do this thing that's a 135-mile race. And to qualify for the 135-mile race, first, he had to run a 100-mile race in 24 hours. So there was only one between then and the race that he wanted to do for charity. So he decides, well, I've got to do that one, but it's 4 days from now. He's got the body of a powerlifter. So he's like, it's something crazy, like 260 or 280 pounds. And he's going to go out and run 100 miles in 24 hours. By mile 70, both of his feet are broken. He has shin splints. He has kidney failure, so he's urinating blood. He finally sits down in a chair and he can't get up to go to the restroom, so he defecates on himself. And he's just sitting there, literally kidneys shutting down, unable to move, broken feet, shin splints. And he knows that if he doesn't finish 30 miles in the whatever remaining, few hours that he had, that he can't qualify to run 135, like just to get like what the stakes really are here. This is just so he can go run another thing. But he so wants to do something for his fallen brothers that he straps his feet up with tape, gets back up and starts walking. And his wife says to him after, an hour or so that at this pace, you're not going to finish on time. So he runs the remaining 19 miles on broken feet. Dude, 19 miles is almost another marathon on broken feet. Imagine stepping up to the starting line of a marathon where you have to run on broken feet. Like that, it's just pure insanity. So he does finish and goes on to become one of the greatest ultra marathoners of all time. And it's just an absolutely astonishing career. And then one thing that everybody has in common that I've seen is they take action. They take action. They're not afraid to fail. They learn from failure and they really own their decisions. So when something really blows up in their face, they just don't waste a second looking to see who else caused it, whose problem it was. They just own it. It was my fault. I did it. And you put all that together, taking action, taking extreme ownership, that's a recipe for success.
Huge, man. It just makes me think you could do more than you're capable of. So I want to appreciate you, man, for not just obviously the legacy you're building, not just for Quest Nutrition, not just for Impact Theory, not just for what you've accomplished, but for who you are as a person. And like you just said about somebody else, studying you inspires me at a very deep level. And I don't get inspired very easily. So you're massively inspirational because of who you are, and much respect for being a world-class dude, man, first before anything else. So look forward to building our relationship. And I want you guys to follow him. He's everywhere, obviously. On YouTube, Tom Bilyeu, Bilyeu. Follow, subscribe to his YouTube. On Instagram, @TomBilyeu, correct?
That's the one. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other final words as far as anything they should do right after this call? Anything that you can give them if they want to really level up? What's the one action step?
100%. What I want you guys to do is really, really to the core of your being believe that humans are the ultimate adaptation machine. It doesn't have to do with you being good, bad, worthy, unworthy, or anything in between. It has to do with that's just how we're wired. we can learn to do anything. So whatever it is in your life that you want to do, you got this. Like, you really can make this happen if you're willing to put in the energy and the work and to be humble and sit at people's feet and listen. But doing that, sitting and meditating on the fact that you can change at any time in any direction, that's the most powerful thing you could do. That's the foundation.
Respect, man. Appreciate you. All love. Let me know how I can help in any way, support your vision and your movement, man. And thanks again. Have an amazing rest of your day. And on behalf of all the game changers, all love, man. We respect massively what you do.
Thank you, man. And same to you. And anytime you're in LA, bro, let me know. Come by, hang out at the crib. Always, always welcome.
Appreciate it, man. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks again.
All right, brother. You too. Peace out.
See ya. Wow. I'm getting a ton of texts and a ton of messages from you guys, obviously, from the impact of that. I want you guys to challenge yourself and really think about what are 1 or 2 takeaways, 1 or 2 breakthroughs that you just went through that are going to be the most valuable and give you the most ROI for your, not just fulfillment, for your success in business and your peace of mind. And look for things that really shifted your emotional frequency, and forget everything else for right now. Like we talk about, it's all about mastery versus overload. So pick 1 or 2 breakthroughs that Tom gave you. And I have notes right here from what he obviously talked about, and then put in your schedule the next 30 days, going back and then taking another breakthrough that you're going to execute on, because the goal is to operate with clarity and never forget why you want to become a game changer, and continue to think and act like a true game changer as well, because either you're truly moving forward or you're falling behind, and either you're truly stepping up or you're backing down. And hearing from somebody that has made all the money that people dream about, but still works and gets up at 4 a.m., he is the living proof of living with purpose and creating a movement based on what you care about most and based on your values. So amazing call. I want to thank you guys for being a game changer and for being a part of this exclusive community. I truly appreciate you. And we have a lot of amazing stuff coming up as well, guys. And if I let you guys bring 1 person, obviously, to watch. If you want to become a game changer, you're interested in leveling up your network, you can go to gamechangersmovement.com/apply. But I'm excited. I challenge you to really think about what's holding you back from becoming unstoppable. And if you're at 6 figures, why are you not at 7? If you're not at 6 figures, why have you not got there yet? There's a reason for everything, right? But you're a game changer for a reason, and the world's counting on you to operate at world class in everything you do. So thanks again, guys. I'm excited. Share your biggest breakthroughs on our Facebook group, and we have a lot of amazing stuff coming up. So thanks again for being a game changer, guys. And we'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.